Here is an image that has been circulating around the internet pretty recently, and honestly, I think this image is perfect for jump scaring people. Apparently, the creepy person in this image is known by many as an entity in the backrooms, that is either referred to as Entity 832 or Pinhead. As creepy as this image is, this is not the original version, since the original version is this image you are seeing right here, which is an artwork created by Trevor Henderson that would first appear on the internet on July 21st, 2021, when a Redditor known as Ashveep uploaded the image to the Trevor Henderson subreddit with the caption, "He's watching you." Also, fun fact, Trevor Henderson is also known for creating other well-known scary internet creatures, such as Siren Head, Cartoon Cat, and Bridgeworm, but I think this creature is much more sinister. Here is another image that has been circulating around the internet pretty recently, and it is used to show what SCP-1875 looks like, which, to briefly describe what SCP-1875 is, it is a Victorian-era chess automation consisting of 4 principal components that are referred to as SCP-18751, SCP-18752, SCP-18753, and SCP-18754. Like the previous image I showed, this image also has its original version found, which looks like this. And to be honest, its original version in my opinion is much more creepier. Once again, here's another creepy photo that you guys have likely seen at least once. I believe I have seen this image once be associated with either an urban legend or a creepypasta, although I'm not entirely certain how I managed to stumble upon this image at any time, to be honest. Apparently a Redditor known as the Most Legendary posted the image to the creepypasta subreddit asking for the image's origin, and the Redditor would mention that the image might be associated with a short story called Ugly Boy. Although, the Redditor would also mention that the story was so poorly written that it had to be taken from somewhere else. Fortunately, the Most Legendary would get a comment from a Redditor named Kyle's Mom is a Bee, which I think you guys all know what the B stands for. Anyways, the Redditor would comment a link to the original version of the Ugly Boy image, which looks like this, and would also mention that nobody knows where the image originated from. So, as of now, it's only a matter of time until we know this image's true origins. At first glance, this image seems very eerie and uncanny due to the person in this photo having a very disfigured face. However, after I tell you the backstory behind the person in this photo, you will feel a lot more depressed than disturbed. The person you are seeing in this photo is named Raymond Robinson, who was born on October 29, 1910 in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. And when Raymond was 8 years old, he was electrocuted by an electrical line after climbing a utility pole so he can be able to reach a bird's nest. And this happened outside of Beaver Falls on the Morado Bridge, which had electrical lines to carry a trolley. In fact, just less than a year prior to Raymond's injury, another boy got electrocuted by the same electrical line that Raymond touched. However, that boy died from being electrocuted, while Raymond managed to survive, although he barely was able to pull through, losing his eyes, nose, and right arm as a result of the accident. During Raymond's adult life, he would spend his days at home with relatives, making doormats, wallets, and belts to sell. However, he would often go outside during the night and rarely during the day, so he can avoid frightening anyone due to his appearance. While going outside at night, Raymond Robinson would go for long walks on State Route 351, where he would use a walking stick to help him see where he is going. During the moments when Raymond encountered strangers, he would have a short conversation with them, or take a photograph with them in exchange for beer and cigarettes. Unfortunately, some people Raymond encountered were pretty cruel, and he would even get struck by a few cars in his lifetime. Eventually, locals in Beaver County, Pennsylvania would believe Raymond's accident to be nothing but an urban legend, since most of the Beaver County residents who tried to encounter Raymond during the night failed to find him, while the very few residents who found him told their friends about their encounters with him, which resulted in Raymond Robinson becoming someone straight out of an urban legend to most people. And thus, Raymond Robinson became known by many as Charlie No-Face, although he would sometimes be known as the Green Man due to people thinking that his skin would have turned green from the electrical shock he suffered. Eventually, Raymond would stop going for walks during the last years of his life, and retired to the Beaver County Geriatric Center, where he would die on June 11, 1985 at the age of 74, having lived almost 90% of his lifespan as a severely disfigured person. Before learning about Raymond's backstory, I've seen this image numerous times on the internet before, and I always thought that his face was edited to purposefully look uncanny. But now I know there was no editing behind the photo. If you are into the liminal space aesthetic, then you likely would have come across this image that shows an abandoned food court in a mall. And despite having almost no information to go off of when trying to locate which mall this image was taken at, people were actually able to find the mall where this image was taken, which was at White Flint Mall in Rockville, Maryland, United States. That opened on March 2nd, 1977, before eventually closing on January 4th, 2015, and later being demolished from July of 2015 to January of 2016. Currently, the mall is being replaced with 4 office buildings, a 300-room hotel, 1 million square feet of retail and restaurant space, and 12 apartment buildings. There's also another version of this image that shows more of the chairs in the food court and more of the right side of the image I showed you, and there's more images of inside the mall that can be seen on the internet. Before I move on to the next entry, I'll show you guys some of the many images of inside the mall that I thought were the coolest out of all of them. Alright, so before you comment, no, this photo is not edited or AI generated, and the people in this photo did have to all wear gas masks. This photo was taken on Japan's Miyake-jima Island, which is known for having a volcano named Mount Oyama that has been known for erupting 13 times in the past 890 years. On July 14, 2000, Mount Oyama would begin another series of eruptions, and by September of that same year, the island was completely evacuated due to sulfur dioxide gas emissions coming from the volcano. On February 1, 2005, residents were allowed to permanently return. However, there was still a constant flow of sulfur dioxide coming from Mount Oyama, so as a result, residents of the island were required to wear gas masks at all times for a certain period of time. And during that period of time, this photo was taken showing us a darker side of the Miyake-jima Island. As of now, masks aren't needed to be worn on the island, as they have not been needed for several years. Although, if another volcanic eruption were to occur, there would probably be more photos like this being taken, to remind us how much of a curse it is to live within close distance of a volcano. This is an image that is creepy for one reason only, and that is that the person in this image is missing his entire upper jaw and most of his lower jaw. I remember when I would first see this image years ago thinking that the person in this image was a World War I veteran who lost both of his jaws after getting severely injured in the war. However, this person isn't a World War I veteran, but rather an American socialite, sportsman, and industrialist named Eben Byers, who was known for winning the 1906 United States Amateur Golf Championship. In 1927, Byers would injure his arm after falling from a railway sleeping berth, and a doctor suggested that he take Radifor to cure his pain, which was a medicine manufactured by a doctor named William J.A. Bailey. That was a solution of radium in water which he would claim stimulated the endocrine system. But here's the thing, Bailey was a Harvard University dropout who falsely claimed to be a doctor of medicine. Byers would begin to take several doses of Radifor per day, believing it gave him a toned-up feeling. However, in October of 1930, he would stop when that feeling faded, and during this time he had lost weight, had headaches, and had teeth beginning to fall out. In 1931, the Federal Trade Commission asked Byers to testify about his experience. However, he was too sick to travel. So as a result, the commission sent a lawyer to take his statement at his home, who would later report that Byers' whole upper jaw, excepting 2 front teeth and most of his lower jaw, had been removed, and that all the remaining bone tissue in his body was disintegrating and holes were actually forming in his skull. To make Eben Byers' situation even worse, he was attributed to acute radiation syndrome on March 31st, 1932, although he just actually had multiple cancers and not ARS, which would cause him to die on the same day. Fortunately, Byers' death would receive a lot of publicity, and it would help spread the awareness of the dangers of radioactive cures. So as tragic as his death was, at least it helped us make improvements in the medical field. From 1957 to 1971, a man would terrorize the Channel Island of Jersey, entering homes at night wearing a rubber mask and nail-studded wristlets, murdering women and children. And during those years, authorities could not find the killer, and would mistakenly accuse an electric agricultural worker and fisherman named Alphonse Legastelloy as the killer. This would result in Alphonse being arrested, although he would eventually be released due to there being a lack of evidence to prove that he was the killer. And sadly, when being accused as the killer, he was ostracized by many of Jersey's locals, and would even have his cottage burnt down in an act of arson. Fearing for his life, Alphonse would flee to the Écriteaux, where he would spend 14 years on the island of La Marmotière despite no longer being suspected for the murders. On July 17, 1971, a man named Edward Paisnell was stopped by police after running a red traffic light before attempting to evade police pursuit. In the car which he had stolen earlier that evening, police would find several pointed sticks and elements of his costume he wore when committing his murders, most notably his rubber mask that can be seen being worn by a mannequin in this photo, that many people find rather chilling to look at. In December of 1971, Paisnell would be convicted of 13 counts of assault, rape, and sodomy, and would be sentenced to 30 years in prison, although he would never serve his entire 30-year sentence due to him being released from prison before his death in 1994, where he would return to Jersey briefly following his release, before moving away due to locals feeling disgust for him and his murders he committed. During his trial, he would mention that he was inspired by Gilles de Rais, a notorious 15th century occultist and child killer, who was known to have murdered approximately 140 people, who were mainly young boys. Because Edward Paisnell committed such heinous crimes, he was known by many as the Beast of Jersey, which I think suits him well, since only a beast as terrifying as Paisnell would wear such a scary and intimidating mask, because I would not want someone entering my home wearing something that tells me I should run away as fast as I can.